Hi! So today I want to talk about everyone's favorite thing in the whole world. Rocks. No, okay. This is a metronome. So metronomes are something that I think folks maybe know they should be using, but aren't necessarily using, or are using too much in a way. So what I want to start out with is talking about what overuse of a metronome can cause, and that is making you sound like a robot. So hitting everything on exactly the beat all the time is actually not what you want to do necessarily. But practicing with the metronome is going to help your innate sense of rhythm, and it's also going to help you understand where those notes are supposed to go in the grand flow of a piece. So for a metronome, you might hear something like this. You might hear it for a while you're practicing with it. One thing I actually recommend with metronomes is don't overuse them, because at a certain point you're just going to block out the noise. It's a beep, it's a snap, it's whatever the sound is that you're hearing on your metronome. And while it's very, very good and very helpful to learn with it, it's not useful if you can't hear it anymore. So I actually say break up your metronome practice time within your normal session. Look at doing it maybe for 5-10 minutes a session, if that, just to keep it fresh. So metronomes going to be also important for very complex parts of a piece. So you're going to want to play the hardest part of a piece that you're playing with the metronome slowly. So maybe the speed you're going for is this. But that's 100 BPM on this, and maybe we want to actually start around 60 BPM. So that's going to sound like this. But another thing to consider with the metronome is, while you may know that this is 60 beats a minute, this is 100 beats a minute, so on and so forth, you may actually want to tune in the metronome to an eighth note. So you may actually want to play it twice as fast. So if every note you're playing is an eighth note, it may make sense to have this set at 120 BPM. I actually would take a look at that. And sometimes you can also go really slow. Maybe you want to learn how to syncopate on the first beat of each measure. Set your metronome really slow so that the second, third, fourth, so on and so forth beats are also included in that initial blip. So there's a few different ways you can use metronomes there. Hey, you know what's super helpful other than listening to metronomes? Like this, or like this, or not like this. If liking and subscribing. If you could like this video, that'd be awesome. Now, as I mentioned earlier, over-reliance on metronomes can make you sound a little bit like a robot. And that's because if you are only focusing on playing everything at the exact beat at the exact same time, you kind of will sound like a robot. So I've heard a lot of people say things about, I'd rather hear somebody play with passion than like technical perfection. I think there's some credence to that, but I would actually look at how you can subdivide time, how you can take time from practicing with this metronome and then make it your own. So maybe you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can hear my 4 is a little long in certain places, a little short in certain places. So maybe you hear when you're playing, you actually subdivide a little bit after the fourth. So we call this term rubato, and rubato is lengthening time and then shortening it a tiny bit at the beginning of a next measure or at the end of a phrase. So you'll hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and then so on and so forth. This happens a lot before codas, at the end of pieces, between different breaks. Gives the audience and yourself a moment to breathe. So rhythm can be also thought of in a way as breath. It's the space between the notes that make rhythm happen. So while you're playing on 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're playing staccato, you're playing legato, it affects the perception of time. One thing I find a lot with my students is actually, if you're playing louder, you tend to go a little faster. If you're playing quieter, you tend to go a little slower. So another thing to keep in mind when using metronomes and making sure that your rhythm is consistent And this is a thing where metronomes come in handy, is a soft part of the piece versus a loud part of the piece. Use a metronome there to make sure you're playing at the same speed despite the changes in volume. I'd highly recommend checking that out on your own pieces, even if you know that you're feeling proficient on them. This is a way you can use a metronome outside of the initial learning of a piece to actually understand how your perception of the piece is happening. Another way you can do this is by simply recording yourself and listening to it. Play it back with a metronome, tap your foot, clap your hands, anything that you need to do, essentially. So I definitely recommend trying out a metronome if you haven't already, since I think it's a really unique tool in a musician's kit to help them progress on their pieces that they're learning, as well as being able to understand where you tend to speed up and where you tend to slow down. I can give you some examples from my own work, but if you maybe actually speed up when it's softer and then slow down when it's louder, that's something to be aware of too. So, I want to kind of end the video a little bit asking you, hey, where do you feel like this piece needs the most help in terms of the rhythm? Where is the metronome going to help you the most? And give it a go. And try playing with a metronome too, and if you have to miss some notes, that's okay. Sometimes playing slow is really hard, even harder than playing fast. So you'll figure that out on your own, but just ask yourself that question. Where's a metronome going to help me? Where isn't a metronome going to help me? And then try to limit the amount of metronome use too, since I really believe that after 5 or 10 minutes of using a metronome, you're going to start to tune it out, and maybe you'll be just playing along with some additional noise in the background at a certain point. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. I hope this helps demystify metronomes a little bit for you. Feel free to like down below, this way. No, I don't know. And then subscribe as well. So thanks for listening to me rant about metronomes. And let me know if you have any questions or comments down in the comment section below. Bye!